Storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. That is what this week's episode will be all about. This is the second video on my video series about cosplay performances, so if you haven't watched the first episode, I recommend that you go to that one first. As I also mentioned in the previous video, there are no one right way or wrong way to make a cosplay performance. What works in one country might work differently in another one. We are a very diverse community with all sorts of different cultural backgrounds and ways that we like to be entertained. This video series is based off of my own experience as a cosplay performer for roughly 18 years, as well as my judging experience on an international level for 10 years. How do you tell a story on only a few minutes, and how do you do it on a stage? This is one of those tasks which for many people can be quite tricky. I still find this part of performance to be one of the most difficult aspects, even after many years of performing. Last week we talked about the balance between showmanship and storytelling, and while they're both equally important, the easiest way to balance it out your workflow is to start with the storytelling part. First of all, we have many different genres. Some of the more common types of performances that you might see on stage, depending on where you live and where you watch cosplay shows, will be drama, comedy, fighting, dance, musical, and a slowly growing popularity in horror. Of course, there are many other genres in this, and you might also find them to be combined. There are no limits to what you can do, but I do recommend that you're sticking to maybe one or two genres since you do have this limited time on stage. You only have so long to make the audience feel the vibe of what you're doing, and changing genres midway in a manner that doesn't suit the story you tell will make it more difficult for the audience to actually feel those emotions that you want them to feel. I will be diving more into the different genres in a later video and how you can work around with the different types, but for the purpose of today we will be focusing on a more overall viewpoint so that you get the framework to build onto later. First, we start out with the structure of your performance. I have created this very beautiful little diagram with my own Frankenstein version of the storytelling fish. It kind of looks a bit like a short eel. It's not my best drawing. The fish has been parted into 3 sections: the start, the middle, and the end. In front of it we are feeding it its medicines, which consist of a healthy spoon of 3 high points. When you are to make a performance, you can consider these 3 sections as your own guideline to keep things structured and to have them follow a singular storyline. The high points are, as the name implies, high points in your performance, but more on that later. So let's work through it with an example. For this purpose, I will take one of my very old performances from the Nordic Cosplay Championship Finals in 2013. I will not be playing the full performance with sound here, but you can watch it on your own if you like. Link is down in the description below. The source of this manga is Atakan, and the characters you will see on stage is Shiro and Kojiro. While this performance is not necessarily the best I made, I feel like it has the most clear structure for the purpose of explaining. This is not an analysis discussing what could have been done better and what was working especially well, it's just to clarify my points. In the start of the performance, you see me a little awkwardly flipping around these fans for some sort of performance. This doesn't have much to do with the story, but it serves as a setup to lead you into the plot. And here it comes. A loud thundering noise, followed up by the sound of drizzling rain. So the start of this performance is summarized into as Shiro, the character I'm cosplaying, going about his business in the day, and suddenly it starts pouring. So he goes to open up his umbrella shop. If you have watched the previous video, you might remember how I said to leave unnecessary information out of the picture. This is the first example of that. You do not need to know the backstory of Shiro. Why is he an umbrella maker? What kind of double life does he live? It's unnecessary. All you need to know to understand the story is that it's raining and he has an umbrella shop. Here comes the other character, Kojiro, who runs to the shop to buy an umbrella to escape the rain. Shiro tries to help him find the perfect umbrella, but Kojiro doesn't really seem too pleased with any of the options presented. Too small, too flashy, too many holes, stuff like that. Finally comes the usable umbrella. This can actually keep him dry, and he decides to buy it. But then comes the plot twist. The rain stops and Kojiro suddenly doesn't need the umbrella anyways. So Shiro spent too long trying to present the perfect umbrella but lost momentum. Every opportunity has its shelf life. Still, he kinda shrugs it off and just starts cleaning up and closing the shop down. A very simple story with a start, a middle, and an end. This video is not the best example I got for the use of high points, but they are still there. A high point can be many things. It can be a stage effect, plot twist, point of no return, anything you can think of that would stand out from the rest of the performance, even if it's just subtly. In this performance, the high points are the thunderstrike at the beginning, the final umbrella, and the plot twist of the rain ending. Of course, other umbrellas also could be argued of being high points, but if so, they are seen as small high points, if that makes sense. So in summary, For the beginning is where you set up the scenery and give the audience an appetizer of what they're going to watch. The middle is where you plot and your storyline takes place. The end, that is the crucial part where you consider what feelings you want your audience to be left with. You don't want to just cut it out before a sort of conclusion is made to your story. This method can be applied to any sort of performance with a storyline. Here are some things to think about while you brainstorm your own performances. What is the plot? What feeling do I want the audience to have when they're watching? This is where you kind of choose the genre. Would someone who doesn't know the series understand what's going on right now on stage? How can I tell the story in a more simple way? What kind of high points do I want in my performance? How do I set the stage at the beginning? Should it be mood building or are we just driving straight into it? How do I want the final arc of the performance to look like? How do I make something original? When you have an outline of this, you can start thinking about your high points. Try to brainstorm what kind of stage effects could be useful to convey your story. You might need some specific stage props to interact with, support the mood, or just something entirely different. Some performances require something big and loud to pump up the energy on stage, while others call for something more subtle. Sometimes you will find yourself with just a few ideas that could work, and other times you have a dozen. For a balanced performance, I recommend sticking to 3 major high points, something that serves as an attention grabber. You would ideally want people to remember your performance for these high points, because it's what made them feel something. Maybe it was visual, maybe emotional, whichever it was, it stood out. So I hope all of this made sense to you so far. We will continue in a bit after a short break to present this video sponsor. I be joking again. It's still just me in my craft room, there are no sponsor. But I think you should pay attention to my very yellow shirt. It's part of a t-shirt collection that I have designed and drawn. Ugly Cats Doing Cosplay. So if you're interested in that and getting one for yourself, you can check out the link in the description below. Another generally good tip when you're making your performance is to see what other people have made, because you don't want to copy someone else's performance, not even by accident. Of course, if you are recreating a specific scene from source material, there will be similarities. Still, your goal should be to stand out, not to be a copycat. That kind of behavior is really disrespectful, and personally, if I get some idea for performance, but I find something made by someone else which is done pretty much the exact same way that I would have done it, I will steer my plans in a different direction. Most often this occurs when people make musical performances. Of course, you have just as much right to perform a song from the source material you cosplay from as the other people who has done it, but it won't make you stand out. For this reason, I recommend that you give it a go at writing your own songs for musical performances. That way you will get to make something new and original that hasn't been seen before. If you like this video, please press that like button, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode. We'll be talking more in depth about the use of high points, show some examples, and all that good shenanigans. But I would like to know, what are your thoughts on this topic? Have you performed before? Are you new to it and want to test the waters? Please leave a comment down below and let's build up that community of giving each other tips and tricks in the comments. If you like what I do and you want to support my channel, you can head over to patreon.com/tinyasu, or you can check out this shirts. They're very comfy. Thank you. Stay hydrated. Don't con crunch. Until next time.